player, and you know I'm not a stayer. That's a dirty, dirty love.
I'm still in love with you, boy.
So girl, you try to understand that.
And we're back for the next part of the story, and we're going to pick it up with Murry Elias right here. And we're talking about the making of the old to the new project, and specifically the making of the mega hit I'm Still in Love with Sean Paul and Sasha. So, Murry, we left off when you got a call about I'm Still in Love from Mark Ronson.
Right.
During making the Dirty Rock album, Sean Paul's Dirty Rock album.
And before we pick up where we left off, I just want to add one thing, because we were listening to the song during the break.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that, your listeners understand. Steely and Clevie did a brilliant job with recreating these rhythms in just the right way. And Clevie did a brilliant job in bringing the best out in Sasha. Mm-hmm. So, even though this is a story where two egos clashed, or two creative egos clashed.
Yeah.
It's still, working with Steely and Clevie was an honor, particularly being in the studio, working, collaborating. But what they brought to the table was exactly what I hoped they would have brought to the table in terms of licking over the rhythms and updating old rhythms and making them sound fresh in 2000.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that, everybody understands that, we all appreciate what they brought to the table. It's not like, okay, they did nothing and I did everything.
Yeah.
It's we all did what we did, but at a certain point, somebody had to take control of the project.
And then that does happen, though, in the music industry, where creative differences take place, and
how many bands are broken up over the years?
There you go.
The Talking Heads. There's just there's a million. Exactly, the Beatles.
I was thinking the Beatles are prime example.
So yes, it's always creative differences. And this was just one instance of that.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that clear to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Mark Ronson calls. All right. And this was, I think, he was calling because he was producing an album for Elektra, a Mark Ronson album.
Okay.
Okay. Mark Ronson was the DJ, artist, producer.
Right.
Okay. And he had a song called International Affair, which, if you listen to the Dirty Rock album, is on there. Mm-hmm. It was a song with a girl named Debbie Nova.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And he played, he had voiced Sean. Now he was saying, I did this song with Sean, and I want to know if we could get clearance for it. He sends me the track. And if you recall from Dirty Rock, the rhythm, the beat of that song was a chopped up version of the Uptown Top Rankin rhythm.
Uh-huh.
He basically sampled it and chopped it up and looped it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the world of hip-hop, which of course is what we were trying to go for with a record like I'm Still in Love, to cross it over, you can have two songs on the same beat at the same time.
Right.
Okay, in Jamaica.
It works in dancehall.
Diwali, how many, 25, 30?
That's what dancehall was built on, versions.
Right, absolutely. But in hip-hop, it's a sin.
Different story.
Okay. If you recall, maybe it is something your listeners will appreciate. It's a little off topic, but remember the Capleton record tour? The remix.
Yes.
The remix.
Yes.
That was on a Slick Rick beat.
Yes.
Okay. And Def Jam was getting ready to put out Montel Jordan, This Is How We Do It, also on the Slick Rick beat.
Mm.
And nobody had ever put a song out on the Slick Rick beat until Capleton came with Tour.
Right.
It was never sampled and used.
Right.
That was the first time. But Montel Jordan and Def Jam and Leor Cohn thought that Montel Jordan was going to be the first time, and got caught off guard by the Capleton.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
I was kind of close to a lot of the people who were involved back then.
Yeah.
It is my, I don't think theory, it's my belief that the reason Capleton got a deal on Def Jam was so they could basically take the record and kill it. Because they didn't want anything to get in the way
Of the Montel Jordan.
which became a monster. As big as the Capleton record was to us in the reggae core
Yeah.
and the hip-hop world,
Yeah.
it was nothing compared to what happened to Montel
Right,
Jordan.
right.
I mean,
That blew
was-
up majorly.
that's a classic.
That
That's,
blew
you
up
know,
majorly.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's like, it was a dominant record at the time.
Yeah.
So I just felt it was the catch and kill, like what they were doing with Trump with the National Enquirer, catching all the bad stories about Trump and then killing them.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of what they did to Capleton.
Wow.
I mean, he made his money. He got whatever he got for signing the deal.
Yeah.
They put out his album, which flopped.
Yeah.
Okay. And Tour just kind of did this little thing and then disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's still a classic to this day.
It is.
Okay, but it might have
It
been
didn't
a lot-
reach its potential.
I don't think so. All right, so now I'm looking at Mark Ronson handing me a track with the same beat,
The Uptown
the
Top
top ranking
Ranking.
beat that I'm about to come with. And I'm like, this can't happen. It's like now he, stealing Clevie, all these obstacles. Here's another obstacle. And I'm saying, no, this can't be. But I can't. What am I going to do? Sean kind of wants the record, but I can't say no to Mark Ronson and Elektra. So I said, all right, we'll do it, but we have, you have no video rights and you have no single rights. Okay.
Has to be an album track.
And if you want single rights, an album, and video rights, you have to come to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I knew when you come to us, the answer will be no. Which is what happened. But at the time, it was like, is there anything else that's going to get in the way of this record? So we agreed. We put it on our album, just as a precaution. And we, let Mark put it on his album. And it never came. When it came time, they came to us for single rights and video rights, and we said no. So, moving forward, we are finishing up the Duddy Rock album. This is, summer, mid-late summer of 2002. And Virgin Records wanted to sign Sean.
Virgin.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, Virgin was seriously in the hunt. Patrick Moxey, who was the head of Virgin, not the head of Virgin, but A&R Virgin.
Yeah.
Who had signed Beanie Man.
Right.
Okay. And
Because Beanie Man and Janet Jackson had a record out at the same time when Sean Paul and Sasha's single came out. The Feel It Boy record.
yeah, that
For
came out.
Virgin.
No,
For
that
Virgin.
came out. It came out maybe when the old to the new single.
Yes,
came. Oh, okay,
yes,
yes. Okay.
yes,
Yes. Okay. Yes.
yes.
Absolutely. Not my favorite record.
Yeah.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, the whole Beanie Man project, in my eyes, was a flop. It was a flop because Virgin did what every major label does when they sign a reggae or dancehall artist.
Yes.
They decide to, well, we have the biggest store in Jamaica, but we can't put out a dancehall record because nobody likes dancehall. We have to turn him into an R&B artist.
Happens every time.
It happened with Shaba.
Yeah.
Okay, it happened. It didn't really happen that much with Buju. Okay, but it definitely happened with Shaba. It happened to some degree with Supercat.
Yeah.
Okay, not as much, but it definitely happened to Shaba, and it definitely happened to Beanie Man. I mean, half that album was produced by the Neptunes.
Yes.
All right, and then there was the Janet Jackson track, and they didn't even bring Jeremy Harding in to produce a song on that album. And the only reason Beanie Man had a deal with Virgin was because of Zim Zimmer.
Yeah.
So just a very ill-conceived flop, in my view. And the last thing I wanted was Sean on Virgin. But Sean and Jeremy desperately wanted to get off of EP. They wanted to be on a major label. You know, I mean, they still be on VP.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, technically they're, but you know, just being on a major label, you feel like you're at least going to get, you know,
some exposure
and dollars in marketing that VP was not going to be able to put up match or put up with, and so they were like, we don't care where we end up, just anywhere but VP. And they had a deal, they had an offer, and as the summer rolled along, that's sort of where the project was heading. And already Virgin and Patrick were like sending Sean to work with the Neptunes. Okay. Now the downside of that was the track that Sean ended up with for his album was the worst track on the album. What was it called again? Anyway, it slips my mind the name of the song, but nobody ever talks about that song on Sean's album. All right. The upside of that was he made the song for Beanie Man, which was with Lady Saw.
Healing.
No. Beanie Man, Lady Saw, and Sean.
Oh, that's
okay,
yeah.
Right. Again, the name is slipping my mind right now. But it was a monster record.
Yeah.
It was a huge record and a great record. So that was the upside. Then the other upside was Sean did a record with the Clips.
Yes.
Okay, which really helped bring Sean to a whole other audience at a very early stage in his career. So there was some upsides for working with the Neptunes and heading towards Virgin. But having to do a whole album with the Neptunes would have been a disaster for Sean.
Right. Yeah.
As it was for
changing his trajectory.
And we were, you know, we had already proven that dance hall records could get on the radio.
Right.
You know, I think
because at the time there was a lot of it on the radio.
But I think a lot of what the major labels thought was, oh, well, that's New York, that's Miami, that's Boston. But what about, you know, Chicago? What about Detroit?
Yeah.
You know, what about Iowa? You know.
Right.
So I knew Craig Coleman from Atlantic, the president of Atlantic, from my days as a DJ at Danceteria. We worked at Danceteria. And, you know, we always had a good relationship. And I had been shopping Sean to Craig for a year. The day I got Give Me the Light, when we pressed it up at VP, I brought it to Craig in a meeting. And he liked it. But Craig had lost a bidding war to MCA for Shaggy. All right. And Craig, to his credit, is probably the most knowledgeable major label executive when it comes to reggae and dancehall. Okay, he signed Garnet Silk.
Yeah.
He signed No No No.
Right. Okay.
Okay. You know, Atlantic. Craig is a fairly knowledgeable reggae guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And I played him Give Me the Light when we first got our pressings in.
Yeah.
So he liked it, but I need something that's going to be Shaggy big. That was his refrain to me every time. And it's nice. It may be a big record, but I need something that's going to be Shaggy big. A couple of weeks later, it's top 10 on Hot 97. Top 10, as I mentioned earlier, down here on Power 96. And I think we were getting some love up in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yes.
Okay, ZMX, which has always been a big
yes,
radio.
Yes, because I was frequenting Hartford at that time, too. So
okay,
yes.
ZMX.
Yes.
So we were top 10 on these three stations. So I go back to Craig. I say, Craig, look at the numbers. Look at BDS. Look at the charts. Yeah, Murray, you're right. It's becoming a big record, but I'm sorry, I need something Shaggy. He goes, Murray, I need something Shaggy big. Okay. I said, well, it's going to be big. I can't promise you Shaggy big because that's 10 million. You know, very few records are Shaggy big.
Yeah.
You know, very few pop records are Shaggy big.
Exactly.
Okay, you know,
exactly.
So I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, you should, you know, go with this. I don't know. For the next month, this record was like #1 at those three stations. But we couldn't break this record beyond those three stations. Even though it was the hottest record in New York, Miami, and Hartford, you would think the record would explode.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you know, our radio guy just could not bust it any further. Sean, Jeremy, and I, and one of the reasons I believed in Sean from the get-go, and particularly, you know, once I met him in person, you know, it was very early on, okay, back in '99 we met. Although he claims we met years before when I was working with Cuddy Ranks and he was working with Sharon Burke as a driver. He claims we met back in those days, but my memory was a little vague. But he claims that we absolutely met, you know, when he's Cuddy's driver. But anyway, I met Sean. And when I looked at him, I said, "This guy's made for videos. This is a video artist, and you know, this guy is the package, the whole package." Yeah. So Sean, Jeremy, and I start trying to convince BP to give us a budget for a video. And he wouldn't do it. For giving the light. And there's a lot of politics, which I can't get into. And, you know, it was just a lot of drama. And they just didn't have the vision of how videos, particularly with an artist as good looking as Sean, you know, and as multicultural as Sean, where he would his look would appeal to blacks, appeal to whites, would appeal to Hispanic people, you know, because he was all of that, you know, that's his, you know, that's all of his different heritages,
that's his ethnicity,
right? But you know, A, they didn't want to spend the money, and B, they just didn't have the vision of what video would do for dancehall music and for Sean in particular. And we were, you know, holding out, and they were holding out, and finally we convinced them to do a video. Okay, for Give Me the Light. And when we did the video, well, hold on, before we did the video, I get a call from Little X. Okay, I said, "Murry, I want to work with Sean Paul." Now, for your listeners who don't know Little X was probably the #2 urban video director at the time, along with Hype Williams. Okay. By the way, Hype Williams' very first video that he ever directed on his own, Cuddy Ranks' Living Condition.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that one.
Okay, yeah, he produced it. You ever see that video?
Yeah.
With all the guys in the fire.
Yeah.
That was my project for Shanachie.
That's a nice project.
I called Ralph McDaniels, and Ralph McDaniels said, "No, you don't have the budget, but I have a kid that works for me that'll do it." Okay, so back to Little X. He wants to work with Sean Paul. We don't have the budget. Okay, long story short, we play we do the video, okay, for Sean with Little X. I play Craig the video, rough cuts, or maybe it was the final cut. Great video. I've never seen anything like this. This was going to be a great video, but Murry, I need something shaggy big. This went on for a year. This went on all year long. The video was the magic, got on BET, became an instant monster hit. In a week, it was top 10.
Yes.
First week was 106 in Park.
Yeah.
What was their countdown?
Yeah.
Their new joint of the day.
Yeah.
By the end of that week, it was already top 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember.
Okay. Record blew up. Craig still didn't want to sign it. Finally, Craig.
I find that interesting.
Yeah, it was puzzling. Long story short, at the last minute, Craig decides to sign Sean. And I turned to Craig, and I said, "You know what? We're literally getting ready to sign with Virgin. It's like, you know, you waited till the absolute last minute." And the reason he waited, and the reason he changed his mind, the week he called me was the week that Z100 in New York and MTV. Z100 added the record, MTV added the video. Okay, before that it was BET.
Yeah.
This is like now August, September, and they added the video and song. Now it's going pop.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be Shaggy Big.
Yeah.
And that's when he called.
Well, he hopped on a little too late.
Right. Well, in the nick of time, so Craig and I got together, unbeknownst to VP, unbeknownst to Sean and Jeremy, and hatched a plan how we can, you know, get this record to him at the last minute. We worked out a bunch of conditions, some of which are private, okay, and one of the key conditions was you will put this record out as we deliver it.
Yeah.
Okay, you are not going to
Don't
remix
alter it. Don't touch it.
Don't hip hop. Don't remix. Don't R&B it. Don't add artists that we don't want on the record. Okay, and do that. Commit to dancehall.
Yeah.
Commit to breaking dancehall. Not Sean, only Sean.
Yeah.
But to Sean and dancehall.
Yeah.
And as part of that commitment, you do a label deal with VP. I'm negotiating a label deal for VP, and they don't even know about it. All right. And I said, and then Sean will break through, and then we'll break through with other artists. I get it, Murray? Absolutely, we'll do that. And the third condition, or one of the many other conditions, but the next condition is, I'm Still in Love with You as a single.
Oh.
I love that song, Murray. I know the original. I love that. You did a great job. You produced that? Really? Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I promise you it's a single. Okay. Let's do the deal. I'll bring it to let me talk to VP. Let's bring everybody together. See if we could flip the script at the last minute. And we did.
Yeah.
Obviously. So now here we are. Give Me the Light is already a hit record. It was already top 10 record pop, top 10 record R&B and hip hop at the time that Craig signed it. Okay, I came up with the idea to do the Busta Rhymes remix. Now we had a budget from Atlantic to afford Busta Rhymes.
Yeah.
Busta Rhymes remix was just like a placeholder to extend the life of the record while we got ready to release it and do a second single. Yeah. All right. The benefit of that project though was make it clap.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sean worked with Buster. We got the remix, which was good. It was a really good remix, but it wasn't like insanely, like a smash.
Right.
But it was like I said, it took us from A to B.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But make it clap, which was part of the deal. I'll do a record for Sean. Sean does a record for me, and that was the hit. Okay. That was a monster record.
Yes.
Okay. So then we're getting ready. Next single is Get Busy. Obviously, number one record for Sean. Third single is going to be I'm Still in Love. I get a call from Craig Coleman. Murray, I have to have a meeting with you. Come to my office. So I go to his office. Murray, I have some disappointing news. My urban department does not want to put out I'm Still in Love. They don't like it. They don't think it's a dance record. They think it's a ballad. They just can't get behind it, and I can't put out a record if my urban department's not going to get behind it. Because if they're not behind it, we run the risk of it flopping. And I understand the dynamic, but I'm like, the urban department knows jack shit about dancehall and reggae. This is their first project. I brought it to them. Yeah. Okay. They owe me. I don't owe them. Right. Okay. Without me, Sean would be on Virgin. Yeah. Okay. And who are these guys who I've never seen in any dance hall or reggae club? They have nothing to do with our whole careers or R&B guys. Now they want to act like they suddenly understand Jamaican music and culture. Yeah. They say, well, you know what? They want something that sounds more like Get Busy and Give Me the Light. Something kids could dance to. I go, Craig, this is a dance record. See Jamaicans dance to music like this, kids are going to go bananas. Rub-a-dubbing, whining, just like basically effing standing up. Yeah. Okay? And this is what you need to explain this to your urban department. This will be a dance record. It'll just be a different kind of dance and a different kind of vibe. Yeah. And when people in America see how to dance to this, trust me, they're going to be dancing like this. I used to play this record at Mars, all the time. Not Sean, but, the original. Right. And girls would grab guys, hip-hop. I played in a hip-hop club, not in a reggae club, And I would play this song, and girls would grab guys and do what kids do. They wind up. So wind up your waist record, and girls just rub up against guys, and guys just rub up against girls, and having sex standing up. And that's what this record is going to bring to the table. So you tell your urban department they don't know what the hell they're talking about. and this is a single. And he goes, well, we want to go with Like Glue instead. And we were always planning on going with Like Glue, you know, but it was going to be the next one. And we'll get to this. We'll get this after Like Glue. So tell Sean and Jeremy, and we're pissed off. And we devised a plan. We said, Craig, are you committed to putting out I'm Still in Love with You as a single? Yes, I promise. You absolutely promise? Yes. Okay. Well, then you won't have a problem shooting the video for I'm Still in Love with You now before we shoot the video for Like Glue. Because we're not going to shoot the video for Like Glue unless you shoot the video for I'm Still in Love.
Got to play a little hardball.
Right. And he's like, because I know if we pay Little X $500,000 to shoot a video for I'm Still in Love, it's not going to stay on the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay. So he, you know, was like looking at me with like eyes that will kill. But you know, Sean and Jeremy was standing there saying, "Yeah, this is it. You want me to do the Like Glue video? Let's go. Let's shoot I'm Still in Love, and then I'll be right there for doing it. And we better hurry up." And that's what happened. So I meet with Little X, and I meet with Tanisha Scott, who's the choreographer that did all the choreography on Sean's video, and is now probably one of the leading choreographers in the world. She choreographed stuff for Disney movies and Disney like Broadway shows, and I mean, she's just, you know, she did, you know, all the Missy videos back. I mean, she did all Little X's like choreography. All right, tremendous woman, great talent, and great person. I meet with them, and I say, this is the drama that's going on at Atlantic with this record. You know, we're trying to, you know, expose reggae to the world that we've now exposed dancehall to. And they don't think this is dance music. So Tanisha, the main part of this video has got to be people effing standing up. We want just people looking like they're, you know, they're standing up, okay, having sex and grinding and whining and rubbing up and, you know, rub-a-dubbing and the whole thing. You know, just make it very sexual. And then kids will want to do that. We get it. We got you. And you know what the video was. And if you look at the video, that's what it is.
That's what you see.
You know, it's a lot of twerking. You know, like a lot of slow twerking before twerking was a thing.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And so we shot the video. And then we shoot the video for Like Glue. Like Glue is the third single. It does really well. And it's come time to do the fourth single, I'm Still in Love. And Craig calls me to his office again and goes, "Oh, Murry, you know, the Beyonce album just came out, and Baby Boy is the hit single, and this is going to be a #1 single, and we just want to make this into the next show. We want to ride the coattails of this, even though it's a Beyonce single. So we're not going to go with I'm Still in Love." So, and we're going to strip it onto Sean's album. So the first pressing or two of Sean's album did not have
I
Baby
did notice
Boy.
that because my copy did not have it on there.
But the later pressings did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, even though it was technically a Beyonce single,
Yeah.
you know, it was produced by Beyonce's crew, it was on part of her album first,
Yeah.
you know, but we stripped it on. So once again, we're not getting Tom Still in Love. So I came up with a plan. And I took the 7 inches that we had from the old to the new, and I sent it to our promo team in the UK, knowing that Uptown Top Ranking
Was a
was
big
a number
hit
one,
in
not a
the
big hit,
UK.
#1
Number
pop
one
hit.
on the pop chart.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that reggae music is part of the culture in England in a way that it's not in America.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
You know, there is no indigenous black music in England.
Right.
The indigenous black music in England is reggae,
Is reggae.
because the indigenous black people and culture in England are Jamaican or Caribbean.
West Indians.
Right, West Indians. So, knowing that there would be some kind of recognition of I'm Still in Love by people in England automatically, You know, white kids and black kids,
Right.
and black adults, and
Yes.
white adults,
Yes,
and white
because
adults.
they remember
right.
Uptown Top
The
Rankin.
Rankin, and they remember going to the blues dances and hearing "I'm Still in Love."
Yeah.
And the older ones remember the Alton Ellis.
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
So I just came up with this plan to take the 7 inches and service the core again
Yeah.
in England
Yeah.
and start to build a buzz.
Yeah.
At the same time, they appointed a new president of Atlantic in the UK, a guy named Max Losada. And he knew we had a video, and he saw what was going on with the buzz in the streets. Now that Sean Paul was big, suddenly "I'm Still in Love with You" surfaced in the core was embracing it in a harder way than they did when it was just on old to the new.
Right.
Okay. And it worked. And Max kind of got it in a way that Craig and the urban department in America did not.
Yeah. Because America has never really latched onto reggae the way they did in the UK and Europe on the whole.
Yeah, Europe on the whole, but particularly the UK.
Particularly
the UK, where, you know, there were always reggae songs on the pop charts.
Yeah.
From the 60s on to the, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like Uptown Top Rankin.
Yeah.
You know, Double Barrel.
Yeah.
You know, Someone Loves You Honey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All these songs were monster pop records.
Yeah.
You know, Millie Small.
Yeah.
You know, you could go through the list.
Yeah. On and on.
Okay. So, yeah, I knew that particularly with "I'm Still in Love" and Uptown Top Rankin, that there'd be a connection
People make
in
a
the
connection.
zeitgeist of England.
Yeah.
And now that Sean was a big star and Sasha was making a buzz with "Sexy Body" at this
Right.
point, that the core would start to embrace this record more than they did the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
And Max kind of saw what was going on, had the video, said, "This is England, I get this." I get a call. We want to bring Sean over to do Top of the Pops. This was in December of 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I get the call. We're going to bring Sean over. I go, "Top of the Pops, I'm going on this trip." Top of the Pops, for your listeners that don't know, was the #1 music program in England from the 1960s, maybe even the 50s, okay, forward, where everybody who was anybody in music that had a song heading to the top of the pop charts in England did this weekly show for, you know, to promote their music.
Promotion,
Everyone from the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Dusty Springfield and Bob Dylan and, you know, Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye and the Supremes and you name it, were on Top of the Pops.
And some of the Jamaican artists who appeared, or Ken Booth with Everything I Own, Errol Dunkley with OK Fred.
Okay, we're on Top of the Pops.
Yeah,
Okay.
because those broke into the...
But I bet you Bob was never on Top of the Pops.
No, not
Because he
from
never
my
had
knowledge.
he never had that big of a pop record in England.
No, but
Right.
in Netherlands, yes.
Right, right.
They had a version in Netherlands called Top Pop.
Okay.
And Bob and the Wailers did appear on that.
Okay, but not in England. But like I said, I'm sure Millie Small was on it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure Alfie and Donna were on
Yes,
it.
they were.
You know,
They were.
so we pack our bags and we're doing a promo tour in England in January of 2004. And bring Sasha, Sean, the dancers, the whole crew, the band, everybody. And not just that, we're doing Old Grey Whistle Test, which is a similar show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another live music performance show.
Yeah.
If you have a hot record or you're a hot artist, and doing all the press and stuff. And you know, for me, Top of the Pops was, you know, we're going to be on Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
I have pictures on my phone of me and Sean in the green room where they had these big mural-sized pictures of the Beatles and Stevie Wonder and the Rolling Stones, and take our pictures in front of all of them. So we're doing the rehearsals, and I'm standing, you know, where the cameramen are, you know, and below the stage, and like while their cameramen are getting their shots and blocking and all that kind of stuff. And I'm standing next to one of the cameramen, while they're, rehearsing and doing run-throughs. And this guy, like a white guy, probably about 50-something years old, bald with tattoos, all these, the Clash, the Sex Pistols. Oh, okay, cool. And I see as he's, doing his work, as he's kind of, nodding his head and, bopping to the music. So I turn around to him and I say, "You familiar with this record?" He goes, "Yeah, of course I know the original. Because it's a punk. Yeah. And punks used to go to reggae spots. That's and, punk and reggae and the Clash and all the connections, in England that, kids in England just had a stronger connection to reggae. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, of course I know this record, And I go, you know what? This is going to be a hit. Because that's the guy I was hoping to reach, by saying, well, if Craig is trying to kill this record in America, there's hope in England and that's the guy right there.
England is the place.
Right, and it's not just Jamaicans. It's going to reach punks who know the original Uptown Top ranking and know I'm Still in Love.
Right.
And here's this cameraman as proof. Okay. Do the show, do the other shows, do all the press. We're running around England, hanging out with my friend John Missouri, all right, at the time, who, by the way, wrote the liner notes for Old to the New.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So we're doing our press runs. I get a call. The following week, while we're still doing press, the record comes out in England. It's officially released. And in England, the pop charts are very different than they are in America.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Not just in terms of the records that are hits, but the way the pop chart usually works. In that, because BBC was a national station, if BBC was playing your record, prior to release, it was going to enter the charts very high. Mm-hmm. Usually records enter the charts almost at their peaks.
Yeah.
That record comes out the next week, enters the chart at number 6.
Ooh.
Okay. 2 days later, I get a phone call from one of my co-workers at VP, who was the head of marketing and promotion, a guy named Sean King. And Sean calls, says, I just stepped out of a marketing and promotion meeting at Atlantic Records between the VP marketing people and the Atlantic marketing people. I was Sean's product. Besides being his A&R, I was also his product manager because I didn't want anybody at VP touching this project.
Okay.
Because nobody at VP would do the kinds of things I've just told you we had to do to get things done. Nobody at VP would ever push VP around. Nobody at VP would ever push Atlantic around to get what we needed. So I was his product manager and his A&R. And where were we in the story now?
Now you get a call from Sean King.
Oh, right. So Sean King calls me and says, I just stepped out of the marketing meeting with Atlantic. And Val Azzoli, Craig was the president of Atlantic. Val Azzoli was his boss, the chairman of Atlantic Group. Val Azzoli just put the hammer down in front of the whole Atlantic staff and told everybody at Atlantic that the number one priority single for Atlantic Records in America and the world, internationally, is I'm Still in Love.
Oh. Coming from the top, huh?
Coming from the top. And I said, and Craig didn't want to call and tell me?
Yeah, I don't think so. Because you've only been telling him that for going on 2 years.
Right, so I said, yeah, that was a joke. I didn't really expect Craig to be the one. But he said, but I wanted you to know that, Val said this is it. And the urban department are just sitting there going with their jaws open,
Yeah.
All right, so we finish our promo run. We come back to New York. Sean probably went back to Jamaica. I went back to New York. And I get a call from Craig. Murry, I want to meet with you so we can start working on the next album. So I go to his office. Yeah, let's talk about the next album. No mention of I'm still in love. No making a Murray.
Like that never happened.
Like a good call, hey Murray, I'm sorry, you were right, I was wrong. Nothing like that. Just like, okay, let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, we're talking and whatever, and the phone rings and he answers it, and he's talking to somebody, and he hangs up the phone and he goes, Murray, that was just Ronnie Johnson. Ronnie Johnson was the head of the urban department. Ronnie Johnson was an old school cat. He wasn't old, but he wasn't like young.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he was probably in his 50s or so. Maybe like mid-late 50s. And nice guy. I liked him, even if he was getting in the way of I'm Still in Love. And
Mm-hmm.
prior to that, we had a good working relationship. And he says, Ronnie wants to meet with you. So when we're done, go see Ronnie. So we finish up, I go see Ronnie, and I walk in. Ronnie says, Murray, I owe you an apology. I'm really sorry. You were right. We were wrong. We should have never questioned you about I'm Still in Love.
Mm-hmm.
You brought us our biggest artist. Right now, he's our biggest artist. You brought him to us. You're the reggae expert. I apologize on my behalf, me to you, and I apologize on behalf of my staff. So, whatever, we gave each other a big hug, and we were cool. Nobody else on the staff ever apologized, but he did.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the rest of the staff still resented,
And that happens a lot when things doesn't go your way.
Right.
Instead of saying, you know what, I flubbed this one, the resentment kicks
Right. This also becomes a kind of a thing of like a white guy telling an urban department what to do. Trust me, that
even if it works.
right, even if it worked, there was that kind of vibe too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if like we never heard a reggae record before a year ago, and this guy's been listening to reggae for the last 40 years.
Right.
So there's that. Anyway, so that's how the record went to number 6 in England. It went to number 13 here in the States.
Yes, on
which
the
has the
Hot
fifth,
100.
right, which is the 5th single off of a reggae Jamaican dancehall album. All right, for the 5th single to go top 15. Okay,
Big deal.
Beyonce doesn't have 5 singles. Okay, off of her albums, or rarely does.
Yeah,
okay,
from a single album. No.
Yeah, very rarely does any artist or album have 5 singles.
Yeah, outside of like Thriller,
Yeah, something like exactly.
Yeah.
Thriller,
Yeah.
I mean, so the accomplishment of that alone, of Sean, and again, we've been talking about like the story and kind of centering around what I had to do to make this record happen.
Yeah.
But obviously, as an addition to Steely and Clevie, okay, it was really Sean and Sasha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Particularly Sean, both of them. Sasha delivered the vibe I was looking for, even if we had to do some tweaking after Steely and Clevie, were, in the dark.
Yeah.
Okay. We tweaked her vocals in Jeremy's studio and got a little more of the vibe I was looking for. But again, that's Clevie working hard with her. And it was really Sean that nailed the vibe of that record to take it over the top, in that, if you remember, one of the big records in the early 2000s was Big Pun. I don't want to be a player no more.
I don't want to be a player no more.
And what Sean did was take that and flip it Jamaican style.
Yeah.
He's like, I love you, but I'm still in love with you, but I'm a player, I can't stay, that kind of, He really took that whole Big Pun vibe and just made it his own.
Right.
And that was just the right idea at that right moment.
Yeah.
So, credit to the artists, credit to Steely and Clevie, credit to myself, and became number 1 in a couple of countries around Europe, I think Italy and Poland and Netherlands, yeah. And it was top 10 all around the world.
Yes,
okay,
was, yes.
So it was a huge record, and for, like I said, being the...
It was big in Belgium.
Right, 4th or 5th single, all the charts.
Yeah.
It was big. It was a big record, and to this day remains, one of Sean's biggest stage tunes.
Absolutely.
It's those definitely the biggest sing-along song
Absolutely.
If someone does it live, that's the song that gets all the girls singing.
Yes,
because of the Sasha brought the vibe that
Yes.
makes all the girls want to sing the song, just like girls sing "Sexy Body."
Yeah.
And that record comes on, every girl sings that song in the
Yeah.
clubs. So credit goes where credit is due, and the record was a huge success. Still to this day, a big song for Sean. But rewind back to the story for now. So this is 2004. I'm going, now we're making Trinity, the next album, and things, whatever. Fast forward to 2009.
Yeah.
And I haven't spoken to Steely and Clevie since 2002 when we had our falling out.
Yeah.
Right? Never called me, say, hey, you were right, or whatever. Okay? But I get the word that Steely is dying. 2009.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. I remember that time.
And, he had diabetes, and he never took good care of himself, and he was, now dying.
Yeah.
And I heard this, then I just freaked out. And I was like, we can't let this happen without me and Steely talking again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
So I talked to Chris, who was talking to Clevie, who was talking to Lloyd Stanbury, and somehow they convinced Steely to meet with me when I go down to Jamaica. So I went down to Jamaica to work with Sean on Imperial Blaze. I was at that time, and we arranged a meeting with me and Steely, not Clevie, just Steely. And Steely was in really, really bad shape at that point. But he had a brethren that was carrying him around. I was staying at the Hilton at that time, and we met by the pool, by the bar by the pool. And his brethren kind of, brings him in. He could walk and everything, but he was, very frail. We look at each other, and we gave each other a big hug, and just kind of, looked at each other. And I said, Steely, I'm so glad to see you. I really, I'm so sorry, and blah, blah, blah. And I just, we needed to sit and talk, and he says, kind of puts his hand out like to shut me up, because I'm kind of, in a situation like that, you're kind of at a loss for words.
Yeah.
You just kind of ramble.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like trying to figure, you don't know you don't know how to say what you're feeling.
Right.
At
Right.
the moment, and I'm really overwhelmed. I'm almost in tears. Okay. And he goes, you were right. He goes, you were right. You made the right call. Your record was the hit. And at that moment, I think I almost did burst into tears. Okay. Or at least I covered them up or whatever. And I was like, here I am, kind of reconnecting with, somebody who was once my friend.
Yeah.
It's like whether the I'm still in love, it's like we all have people who we've had falling out with that, at some point in your life, one of them is going to die, and you kind of feel like you need to make amends.
Yeah.
And, with this story, that was this moment where we needed to make amends.
Yeah.
But I didn't go there thinking that Steely was going to say, yeah, Murray, you made the right call. You knew what you were doing, you were right. And having that come from such a foundational figure in reggae music and dancehall music like Steely, not just Steely and Clevie, Bruce Radix.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a true foundational figure in reggae and dancehall music.
Absolutely.
And we had a great working relationship for so many years, and then we had this falling out, and listen, this was their biggest record ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. This is way
doubt.
bigger than, as I told them it would be. It was way bigger than No, No, No. It's the biggest record they ever had in their careers.
Yeah.
Okay, and to this day.
Yeah.
All right. And just to have somebody of Steely's caliber, stature,
Yeah.
You know, to, say, Murray, you were right, we were wrong. And you kind of feel like, all right, you know what? I've always felt sort of like an outsider in this reggae fraternity. Not that people made me feel that way,
Yeah.
but you just, I'm not Jamaican. It's not it's a Jamaican thing.
Yeah.
I felt like, you know what? Maybe I'm in the club. Maybe, he just told me I'm in the club. Like I belong here. And it was just such an overwhelming moment.
Yeah, as I would imagine.
Yeah, and like I said, I have a picture after we get off. I'll show you the picture on my phone of that day.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, he was gone. So.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a really epic story, though, about all the because most of us, we just know the finished product and we have no idea of what went into it. And like from my perspective, as someone who is from the Jamaican diaspora, who saw the first run of I'm Still in Love and saw what it did in the diaspora and in the Jamaican market, and for a couple of years later to be running the world, but we have no idea what went on behind the scenes to make it happen. Like, I would have never guessed of the falling outs and the battling with the labels and keep putting it off for this one and for this one. We would never know.
Because and not every record is like that.
Because my question, I remember at the time thinking when I'm Still in Love started making the rounds again, like just about 2 years later, I'm like, how did that happen?
Right.
Like, who missed the boat the first time,
And, if you remember correctly, a lot of Jamaican records had a time lag.
Yeah.
When they crossed over.
Yes. I do remember that
like Glue.
Yes.
Like Sexy Body.
Yes.
Heads High.
Yes.
They weren't hits when they were hits in Jamaica. Sometimes they were hits like maybe 6 months later.
Yes.
Sometimes they were hits 2 years later.
There were some songs that I remember, like they had their run on the Jamaican charts, on the reggae and dancehall charts, on their way down, and then they get new life in the international market and they move back up.
Right. Back up the Jamaican chart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, this was like one of those, but most of those records we just mentioned just happen because they take that long to percolate.
Yeah.
Okay. To percolate out of the Jamaican market and back then into the mix shows.
Yeah.
And then into radio.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this record had a more unusual path
Very
and story,
unusual path.
which is why I felt it would be good to share it with you and your audience, because it really is, besides it being a story about a reggae record, it's just a great story.
It is. I mean, and I had no idea, so I'm glad you decided to tell your story and fill us in on the happenings, the behind the scenes, and all of what went into making this an international staple.
It is. I think this will be a record that'll be around, long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
I think this will be a record that, will go on for generations, just because it's already gone on for generations.
I was about to say, because it's been over 20 years already, and and it's still resonating with new generations. So.
And it's also the song, the Alton Ellis song. The song itself is that was the inspiration. It was the song. Great songs are great songs, and people don't give enough credit to songwriters, because we always focus on what's in front of us, which is the artist.
Yeah.
Sometimes the artist is the songwriter, like with Sean.
Yeah.
Okay. But sometimes a songwriter is somebody that you never see or hear of or don't know their names. And whether it's a book or a movie or a play or a song, it all begins with the writer.
Yeah.
The writer is really and in this case, the writer is Alton Ellis.
Yes.
And so he deserves a lot of, what happened with this. And I just think this is a song that will speak to people for years and years to come. And, you know, the song itself, and in particular the Sean and Sasha version.
And there you have it. Murry Elias has been our guest, and Murry, that's all the time we have.
Hey.
And it was great having you again.
Good to thank you for the privilege of having me on your show, and yeah, it was great to share that with you guys.
Always a pleasure, and we close out again with the big hit Sean Paul and Sasha, I'm Still in Love. Catch you Monday, same time, same space, Real Rockers. Peace and out.
Sean Paul and Sasha, come sing for them, baby.
Though you make me holler, though you make me sweat, I can't get your tenderness. Still I can't get you off my mind. What is it about you, baby?
I don't love.
I'm still in love with you, boy.
Well, I'm a hustler and a player, and you know I'm not a stayer. That's a dirty love.